Para já vamos então viajar até a Austrália. We will now travel to Australia, yes, and we will hear from Mr. David Kellerman. David, over to you. Yes.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So I am coming at you live from Australia. It is 9 o'clock at night here. I've already put my kids to bed, but I was really insistent that I wanted to do a live session. And one of the reasons is that I've been teaching students live for all of 2020 remotely. Teachers all over the world have been doing this, of course, but I've gone a few steps further and I really wanted to share with everybody what I've done over the last few years in my presentation about authentically digital education post-pandemic. So what I'm talking about here is what happens after the pandemic. Every university in the world right now has become an online university. And when COVID is a distant memory, when all of the vaccines are out, every university in the world will be a hybrid university. And Zoom phone calls and links and, webcams, it's just not good enough for a world-class university. So some of the interesting things I'm doing today include, as you can see, this beautiful touch screen that I'm going to present on, and also the fact that I am actually producing this myself. So all of the other sessions you've seen have been done by a producer, but I am sending everything here through you today. And I'll show you a couple of tricks. Like, for example, I can put in the chat over here, but I'm automatically translating it from Portuguese into English. And I'm watching it on my screen here. So I would ask everyone in Portugal, you can write comments in the chat in your native tongue, and I'm going to see them right here in English. Now, I don't have a lot of time, so I won't be able to respond to all of your questions, but I can see them here. And I'm demonstrating to you also how important it is to capture this chat on the video recording that students watch after the lectures and classes have finished. This is synchronous, asynchronous learning. And the way that we respond to this chat is incredibly important. So today I'm going to show you essentially about my journey over the last few years. Now, I come from a university called UNSW Sydney. We've got about 65,000 students. And one thing that I've done is I've automatically translated all of my slides into Portuguese. So you may laugh at some of the bad machine translations, but I thought, again, it's a nice, helpful demonstration of technology. Now, the Faculty of Engineering that I come from has about 17,000 students. That makes us bigger than all of Stanford University. And I teach over 1,000 students at a time. In fact, this is 1,100 students. All of these are my students from the year 2019, and it was the last time that I taught before the pandemic hit around January, February 2020. And if you look at what happens when we suddenly go online, basically we rely on our learning management system and our lecture recording systems. And these are screenshots of the actual classes that I took over. This is Moodle here, and this is a lecture recording system. And what you typically end up with in higher education is PDFs and monolithic video recordings. And what I see here is consumption. And the big message that I need to present to everybody here is that universities are not content providers. Because when students look at this, they think Wikipedia, YouTube, free and free. And we just can't compete with the internet in terms of trying to be content providers. But the learning management system, Education 3.0, is built on this paradigm. So at some point, we think, let's try and shoehorn more and more technology into these old systems. And to me, it's like an aging building. At some point, you have to say, just demolish it, knock it down, and start over. And that is what I did with my technology platform for my classroom, which I'm going to share with you today. So my project is, how do you take, I have 2 classes of 500, how do you take 500 students and make them become a team that collaborate together, that work together on a common goal? This is called a learning community. And how can we use digital tools to foster that? And my first idea was, well, what if we don't use educational software? What if we use enterprise productivity software and we rebuild our educational system on that? So back in 2017, I started using Office 365 and I built a system with my IT with PowerShell to bring all of the student groups over to an Office 365 group that automatically synchronized with the enrollments. That PowerShell script, by the way, is open source on GitHub if anyone wants to use it. And in 2017, something came along called Teams. And Teams, of course, has exploded in popularity this year. But when I started using it in 2017, I was the first person in higher education to start using it as a teaching platform. And I brought all of my 500 students over into a team. And I said, we're not using the learning management system. We're using this new thing. It's got mobile apps. It's got a client for iOS, for Mac OS, for Windows. Get going. And the usage absolutely exploded with students posting, taking photographs with their phone. In fact, the engagement from the students absolutely skyrocketed. And so I started thinking about how do you organize a class in these clients? And what I did is I created a channel for every single week, and within every single one of these weeks, I put the content. So you can see here, we're in week 9, and there are the slides for week 9 just pinned as a content. And it's very, very intuitive and simple to use for the students. And of course, the chat happens in that week that's specifically to do with that topic, and when the week is over, they move to their next channel. And that channel also creates something called a OneNote class notebook. And in the class notebook, which I'm going to show you later, it's where I ink and I draw all of my worked examples for my students. And they're actually owners of that document. Now, at this point, you might be saying, well, hang on, Dave, I'm watching you with a video of a screen and it's really hard to see that. And so I'm going to do another little trick. I'm just going to click a button here, and now all of a sudden I'm sharing my screen, and you can see here you're getting a really great direct feed of everything that I'm doing. Now, I was live producing my lectures a couple of years ago, first on YouTube Live and then on stream on Office 365. And giving out assignments, instead of giving documents to download, I actually give them templates on SharePoint, and the students work through their versions in the cloud, on our cloud on SharePoint, and we have the full telemetry and version history of their work. We also take fantastic cloud software like MATLAB Online here, and we can pin our software as a tab in Teams and actually wrap conversation around that professional software that we're using. Also, one of my absolute favorite things is SharePoint. Now, educators are really used to this idea of building their course on a learning management system page, but we can do this with SharePoint pages in Teams and host the actual direct content. If I notice a typo in something, I just open it up and change it. I don't have to upload a new version. And I use Power Apps in my classroom so that my teaching assistants just open an app, they tap a button, and that button goes straight to the cloud to Azure SQL. There's no copying or emailing or writing things down on paper. It's a single source of truth. And we also have this incredible telemetry and analytics coming natively from Teams with the Class Insights tool. We can connect this data to other systems. But one of the really fascinating things that this data showed me is that I went from about 100 posts on the learning management system per semester to my most recent semester where I had 14,000 posts. Now that is an absolutely unprecedented 140 times the amount of communication occurring as a result of modernizing my platform. So if you are a lecturer, you might be gasping and going, oh my God, how on earth could you possibly deal with 14,000 chat comments in your class when you're the only lecturer? Of course, I've got a team of TAs, but it is still an overwhelming challenge. But what I really thought is, here is an opportunity to make something incredibly valuable out of this content. I built a chatbot called QuestionBot. And what QuestionBot actually does is that when the students ask a question, they tag the bot automatically tags the TAs, it sends a push notification, and when the teaching assistant answers the question, it closes it like a IT service ticket by logging the question and answer pair and categorizing it according to the specific topic that it was on based on the channel and within the subject. So it's actually curating these high quality question and answer pairs. And it's creating a study guide for the students all automatically, and then pinning that as a tab within that specific topic. So what we've actually been able to do is to take the content from the students, from their discussion, and generate learning material out of their collaboration. But the really cool thing about it is that this incredible database, there's 1,000 question and answer pairs generated in just a few weeks, is an incredible asset that we can feed into a cognitive service. And I used Q&A Maker, which is actually an Azure Cognitive Service, part of the same authenticated development environment. And I used this, allowing the bot to train itself to actually learn from the material that it was automatically curating. This is a completely hands-off operation, and then begin to answer questions on its own. But it's not just replacing humans. What it is actually doing is it's saying, oh, I think you might be interested in a conversation that some of your peers were having a few weeks earlier, and it directs them back. It actually connects the students back to their like-minded peers. But sometimes students might do something like, for example, take a photo of a piece of homework. Here is a photo from a student, and you go and then say, oh, I'm stuck on this problem. How on earth do we deal with this kind of problem? Well, I put QR codes on all of the learning material, and the bot actually uses Vision APIs to read the QR code in the photograph and say, hey, I see you're working on question 3.01. But more so, the recordings that we take automatically have a transcript that is created, and the bot can search that transcript and it can direct a student back to an exact second of a video recording and deliver it straight to them, helping them discover the material that they didn't even know existed. So 10,000 student posts turns into an asset. It actually is a digital asset that is contributing to the student experience. Now, QBot is an open source project. It's on GitHub. And of course, as it's doing this, it's generating data, it's generating question and answer pairs, Insight is generating telemetry, and I've built an entire system where data is aggregated and federated onto a single system. And throughout the course of a semester, I actually generate about 500,000 to 1 million data points for that single class. Well, the first thing I can do is I can create a Power BI dashboard for my students. This is a dashboard that contextualizes their marks, that helps them understand their strengths and weaknesses. But also I can take that data set and I give them an exam where every single exam question is mapped to a particular week, which is mapped to a particular topic and channel in Teams. And I use these key value pairs to train a very, very elaborate machine learning model with an a priori data schema. And when my new set of students the next year get to the end of semester, but before their exam, I take the weighting functions from this machine learning model and I predict the mark of every single student for every single exam question before they've even sat the exam. And then I take a resource of topic categorized material graded by difficulty and by topic, and I use a .NET algorithm to automatically generate a personalized study pack. Now, this is true personalized learning, an individual study pack for every single student, uploaded automatically by batch to SharePoint, individual access rights, one click in Teams, and you have your own study pack optimized just for you. So everything that I do now is live. It's creative and it's collaborative. My students are working together and we're actually generating the course material together. Our video is an asset. Our conversation is an asset. The digital ink is a shared canvas. Everything that we do is actually building the course material together. We're not content providers. We are collaborating together as a team, and we're writing the course together as a team. So this is what I call collaborative learning. And I was in a pretty good position at the end of 2019. When COVID-19 hit, I wasn't too worried about what my class was going to look like. But you know what? I had a couple of particular things that I relied on this place. This is our beautiful campus in Sydney. Things that we were still assuming students would be on campus for and no longer could be. In fact, I'm just going to talk about 3 of them today, which is the lecture theatre. We actually come into class the laboratories where we do experiments, and the examination halls that we come in to do our final proctored exams. How was I going to deal with these in a unique way? Well, the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to join me very quickly for a class in Solid Mechanics Eng 2400. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in the waiting lobby. So you're waiting for the lecture to start here. And I'm actually now going to say, welcome everyone to Eng 2400. You can see I've got my university logo here and we've got all of our branding. And another thing that I'm sharing is the actual chat from our class. So of course that chat is inside the classroom, and as the students write, they know that what they're writing is also part of the recording, so that the students who are in different time zones get to be part of it and enjoy it. And in the average lecture, I've gone from about 10 students raising their hand to around 250 to 300 student chat comments that occur through the class. And as I have this here, I have another computer here where I'm able to read this chat and respond and answer to my students' questions in real time. So I'm going to talk today about these various different topics. Perhaps we're going to talk about beam deflection. The Harbour Bridge in Sydney is a great example. It's got this very unique catenary curve. So we might overlay a digital model, use a nice transition here, and talk about how we need step functions to apply the loading to this particular beam. And we have these things here, which are the step functions, and we're going to get into some slightly heavy mathematics here. Now, I already showed everybody before that I can actually share the screen directly from this system. And as I'm actually doing this, one thing that you might notice is that as I write this, you're kind of looking at my back as I get really in depth. And so what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to switch over to a second camera over here. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to do a worked example. And now what you see is I'm actually here on a camera. And so now I'm working with my students together. We're going to solve this problem together. And everything that we're going to do is going to be informed by the ideas that the students have. We're doing it live and we're doing it real time. Now, at this particular moment, maybe I get a question from one of the students. It might be something like, oh, what happens if we add a moment into the center of the beam? You can see that question just came up. And I might say, oh, you know, that's a great question. So now we've got a moment applied here. Or perhaps they've asked what the maximum deflection of the beam is. And so we take a different course and we answer that new question and we work out where the maximum deflection of that beam occurs. Now, this is really fascinating because this is a moment now where I have our digital calculation behind me and I can talk about this beam, about the load being applied here, and we can actually layer physical, digital, and really improve our ability to communicate with one another. So I'll jump back here to the class. Maybe here's a summary of what we learned today. Next week, we're going to talk about distortion energy, and then I'm going to say hi or bye everybody. I'll see you next week. And now you're in the exit lobby and it's sort of coming on here to nighttime. So I'm going to come back here now. Okay, we're back at building the future again. And I want to move on to number 2, which is laboratories. So laboratories, of course, students come into class and they go into our labs. And what I've actually done is I've scanned our laboratories in 3 dimensions and I've put them into SharePoint spaces. This is a native tool inside Teams, no new software. And what you can see is that the test rig, here's the actual SharePoint document for how to do it. And over here, you can see that we've got the test rig. Now, this looks like a 3D model, but this is actually a digitization of the actual rig. And the students can take measurements from this system. Now, this is really incredible. They can actually do the experiment in the laboratory by using a 3D digitization of that system. So I'll move on here now back to, you know, what are we using the campus for? And the last one that I've got is the final exams. Now we get to our exams, we're used to these exam halls, and instead we can take a different approach, not proctoring, but actually scanning exam papers, have students using pen and paper and build an exam using forms inside SharePoint and have a live real-time chat during our exams. This is a collaborative examination where students work together. And you know, this was an incredible system. It's built on trust. We use Office Lens in order to scan it, and I actually use machine learning in order to automatically grade these papers by using ML and identifying it. We take this information, we put it back into the marking rubric. It's human in the loop, but here's the fascinating thing. We can compare the histogram from 2019 to 2020. This is fully proctored versus a collaborative open chat exam, and we get the same histogram. So now today, when I look at my 1,000 students, I think this is the greatest asset. Every student here has got 499 other people who are providing them value. And this is what digital universities need to do. And you know, Universal Design for Learning has opened this up to everybody. The incredible thing is that artificial intelligence is actually able to do more humanistic things. It's not replacing humans, it's helping us to connect them to each other. So I want to rebuild digital education natively. Please join me on the journey. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Dr. Kellerman. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can shoot me an email directly. I would love to collaborate with people on this global project. That's it for me. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Dr. Kellerman, thank you so much.